Welcome to Becoming Your Own BFF with host Randy Haveson. Let's agree that life gives us hurdles, but how often do we turn those hurdles into walls? Randy will give you strategies to break down the walls and clear the hurdles that are in your way. The goal of the show is to help you find happiness and joy at levels you didn't even know existed. Becoming Your Own BFF starts now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's great to have you here today, and I have an amazing guest joining us today. I just met her for the first time. I heard about her, and I saw her website and all of her work, but I just talked to her last night, and I have to tell you, I am so thrilled about the conversation that we're about to have. Actually, we started talking last night, and she was talking about stuff. I'm like, no, don't talk about this now. Let's wait until we get on the show. So I am excited for you to meet her. She is the author of 6 books. She just released her newest one. We're going to talk about that. But if you want to get to know someone who just has an amazing story and just lived a magical, incredible life, this is her. So everybody, I would like to introduce you to Nancy Rosenfeld. And here's Nancy. Hello.
Aloha.
Oh, aloha. Oh, you're living in paradise. You're on the island of Maui.
Correct. It is paradise.
It's the best. I mean, I think it's one of the best spots on the planet. If you ask me, if I had to rank them, Maui is like right there at the top. Yeah. And you've been over there how long now?
I've been here for over 5 years.
Nice. Awesome. So I was just blown away by your journey and what brought you there. And the cool part is about our parallels. That was really freaky. I mean, when your number came up and it was 407, it's like, wait, you were in Orlando and you went from Orlando to San Diego, and I'm going from Orlando to San Diego. So I'm just following you. Don't think I'm a stalker, okay?
No worries.
Okay. So tell me about how the transition happened for you. What was your awakening to the point where it was like, wow, you know what? I'm going to go live a different kind of life that's not, you were in corporate America for a while. So you broke away from that pattern to do what you're doing. So, share with our viewers, listeners, a little bit about how you got there.
Sure. So it really started actively about 25 years ago. I was a CFO, a chief financial officer, very structured, diligent in my work, and a consultant to leadership teams. And I got burned out. And kind of to accelerate the story, I decided with much planning, because I was a strategic planner, to take the year 2000 off and just rest and relax. And I ended up writing a book about that year. I'm sorry if my dog starts barking.
It's all good.
So what happened during that year is I realized that I could think differently and live differently, but it was going to take practice and effort. And the name of the book is A Left Brain Thinker on a Right Brain Journey.
Oh, I love that.
It's about shifting how you make decisions. And I was so analytical in my head, and I needed to start getting in my heart. And I actually had to practice that. So hold on one second. I'm going to do something about the dog. Okay. Spontaneous.
I'll pause for a moment. Oh, you know what, guys? Sorry, I don't even know how to do that.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, all right.
This is low key. So after the year 2000, things started to shift, and I decided I wanted to make new choices for myself and find balance. Mm-hmm. And it really was last 25 years of experimentation and asking questions. What really makes me happy versus am I doing this because others expect me to do it? And this accelerated in the early 2000s, and I started speaking on personal transformation. Nice. And then in 2011, I moved to San Diego, and that was a huge shift.
Yeah.
I had never lived on the West Coast, and I just wanted a different energy, a different vibe. I had become so analytical and structured to wanting to just open my heart up and feel.
Mhm.
And if you're not used to that, it doesn't just happen overnight.
No, not at all. It takes a lot of practice.
It takes new experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that I can read. It's not something that someone can talk to me about. I have to have experiences, and then I know, how does that feel? So the question comes back, how did that feel? And if it felt good, keep going in that direction. And if it didn't, okay, I learned something. It's not the end of the
Wow.
world.
So can I ask a question? Because this is something that I see a lot of people deal with in my coaching and when I was a therapist in the past. People want to do those things, but all of a sudden this huge wall comes up and it's all about fear, that fear of making that change in such a drastic change. And especially from the head to the heart. I don't know if you've ever heard, there's an old Chinese saying that says the longest and most difficult journey we ever make in our lifetime is from our head to our heart. So
very
what was
true.
it that helped you to embrace that fear or not give into it? What was that process for you like?
Well, I had experience from my career in strategic planning. What I was doing was helping boards of directors move through change. So I understood change at an intellectual level, but not at a
Yeah.
personal level.
Right.
So I dug into it more, and I got really interested in how the brain works. We're going to go off on a tangent here, but I got really interested and started studying how the brain works when we make decisions and what drives our decisions. And what I learned is it's not the intellectual, it's the emotional is your first driver. I also learned that it's not the fear of change, because a lot of people want change. It's the fear of uncertainty.
Good point. Yes.
That's what we fear. We fear not knowing what's next or not
Yeah.
knowing how it's going to feel. We want the change, but we want certainty that the change is going to be good.
That's true. Into the unknown. Yeah.
Into the unknown. And that's not how magnifying and expanding your life works. If we only operate from what we know or what we hear other people say, we're immediately limited by what we know or what others know. So a big part of my whole journey is about learning to trust that I will land okay, that I'm resourceful, I'll find people or resources that I need, and learning to trust and believe, go with what feels right without knowing where it's going to take me necessarily. And what has happened over and over again is that the result is way better than I could have ever dreamed of or planned or imagined.
Isn't that awesome when that happens?
And then what happens is that starts validating that trust works. And so the next time the unknown is in front of you, or a scary change or transition, it's less scary because you've already been through it. And it's like, all right, I'm taking the leap. I'm jumping in because I know I'll be okay.
Yep.
And what that has done to my life, I mean, here I am, I live on Maui, I travel, I write, I paint. And this is from someone who was a financial person who had to know every minute of every day that I was going to be okay. And now the trust, it's so much freedom and expansive.
Yeah. I am so happy for you. And, I would love for more people to be able to take that leap and have that trust. And, one of the things, and see if you validate this or want to comment on it. I find that when that fear comes up of, oh my God, what is this going to be like? When you go into it, rather than with fear, go in with curiosity. Wow, I wonder what this would be like in order to just travel for 3 months and to leave my corporate job and just live in my heart rather than in my head. Do you find that curiosity is something that helps?
Absolutely. And I'll also say that the human instinct is the first response is going to be resistance. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I find myself, my first response is, oh no, that's scary. I don't know what is going to happen. I mean, I just took a trip to Bali, and that was a huge, I don't want to say achievement, but it was a bucket list that came with some reluctance and fear.
Sure.
And it's about processing it and weighing. Here's another trick that I do
Yeah.
is if you have a decision that feels fearful, I ask myself, if I do it, imagine how it's going to feel. Imagine what I'm going to see, who I'm with, just how I'm going to feel. And then imagine if I don't do it, how am I going to feel?
Yeah.
And maybe it's not worth the risk. And I prefer the safety of not doing it. But
Right.
with the example of Bali, I felt like if I did not go, I was not going because of fear. And I did not want to live with that regret. The upside of having that experience and knowing that I could always get home if something happened was pushing me forward, and it exceeded my expectations. The trip, any fear about long distance or health was not an issue because I was prepared. So back to your question, when you first enter into a situation where it's unknown, take a small step first. You don't have to jump from A to Z.
Yes.
Just take a small step first. Maybe do research. Maybe put on some music and imagine all the positive things that can happen. Maybe journal. What is it that you want from this? Go with small steps first.
Right.
Give yourself some comfort in the familiarity of where you are now, and then start making steps. And I'll tell you, the more research I do on something that I'm thinking about, talking to people, then it just becomes, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You know, I went from, oh, that's scary to, all right, this is my path. I'm doing this.
But do you find also, because one of the things that I like to do when something happens and I feel that fear, I honor that fear. It's like, thank you for being there. I really appreciate it, but let me see how valid it is in this situation. You know, rather than letting it consume me, it's like, you know what? Thank you for being there. I mean, if it wasn't for fear, you know, the dinosaurs would have eaten all of us and we wouldn't be here. So thank God that we have fear built into us. And I think it's important to honor that rather than try to deny it or hide it or pretend it doesn't exist. Agreed?
That's very true. And it also helps us know what to research. It's like, what is it about this that I'm fearful of?
Right.
And let me understand it more. And then maybe I can alleviate that and take care of that. And to honor the fear is to honor it, to acknowledge it, but the hope is that you'll move beyond it.
Exactly. Yep.
And
not let it put a shackle around your ankle.
Right. Because knowing that, so this goes back to the brain. Part of our ego is protection.
Yes.
And that's why we don't like change, because the ego doesn't know what the new is going to be. And so it's human instinct to have that fear. So don't beat yourself up if you have that fear.
Exactly.
And just realize that, okay, so that's my ego protecting me. But the ego is also limiting me. I love, when I'm speaking, I love to ask the audience, what is the opposite of certainty?
Ooh, that's a good one.
And most people will say uncertainty.
Uncertainty. Yeah.
And no, the opposite of certainty is freedom. because certainty can actually be a prison. If we always have to have certainty in our lives, we always have to stay in the same house or the same town or go to the same restaurants or only talk to the same people who are like us, that is so limiting of our life potential.
Yeah.
So
Wow, we never thought about it that way before. That is awesome.
Yeah. So the opposite of certainty, if you can think about that, if you can think of uncertainty as freedom, and yes, it's the unknown, and yes, it can be scary, but that's where your potential is.
Wow.
That's where expansiveness in who you are and how your life is lived. And while it can be uncomfortable, I mean, there's some things I don't want to do. I don't want to jump out of an airplane.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not into physical danger. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But
people talk about shark dives. It's like, no, I don't think I want to do a shark dive.
No, me neither. But life experiences, and it can be a nudge. It can just be a first step. Just, try a class or watch a YouTube video, but slowly get yourself in that environment that you're ready to take a small step for yourself and then let it go.
Yep. Yeah, I remember when I moved from California to Atlanta. I mean, that was overwhelming. And oh my, I don't know anyone there. What am I going to do? So I just started looking at different areas of Atlanta, different things to do in Atlanta. And I found some things like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Wow, that's going to be fun to go visit. And all of a sudden, my brain started seeing myself in Atlanta. Then let's look at apartments or houses. What am I going to do? And all of a sudden, it starts small and builds. And then all of a sudden, I'm moving to Atlanta.
Well, and another thing with that is, and you may think some people think it's science, it's the way the brain works. Some people feel it's more spirit in terms of synchronicity, but things will start presenting themselves to you that help you on your path. A connection will be made either with a person or a Facebook group or a book. And it was like, and then that will help you take your next step. And I love it. I love synchronicity. It opens so many paths that help us along our way. The scientific point of view is that your brain is now wired to look for evidence and validation of your thoughts. And so that's why you're seeing, like some people say, well, I wanted to buy a car, and all of a sudden I'm seeing this car everywhere. It's like, you're wired now, you're looking for it, you're more alert, whether it's evidence of a new job you want to take and you're getting feedback all of a sudden and you're meeting people. Well, because your brain and your mind and consciousness is looking for evidence to help you make the decision.
Yeah. And you know what? I just had a great example of that because I'm moving to San Diego next month. And I'm looking at different places to live. And there was this one, I really wanted to live there. It was amazing. But it was like one obstacle after the next. And I was like, why? What's going on with this? And then I thought, well, let me just, as a backup, let me see about this place here. And I started putting energy into that. And it was like, whoosh. That was so easy. And it let me know I'm supposed to be there, not there.
That's perfect. That's perfect. And that's the way life is supposed to be.
Yes, exactly.
It's not supposed to be a struggle. If it feels like a struggle, it's either not the right path or not the right time.
Exactly. I believe that the universe gives us 3 answers, yes, no, and not yet. But a lot of people mistake the not yet for a no. It's just not right now. But you never know what's going to happen in the future. I can't even tell you how many times it's like I thought it was a no, and it's like, oh, maybe it's a not yet. And then all of a sudden things open up. So it's just, and it comes back to what you were saying before. It's about trust. Trust that you're on the right path and looking for the signs, and you're going to be okay. Isn't that what it comes down to?
Right, right. And also know that every decision is okay. It's better to make a decision and have the experience and feel if it was good or feel if it was not so good, than to stay stuck in fear and not make the decision. Because
Absolutely.
until you get it out, until you feel it, you're not going to know. So I always say there are no bad decisions. You're either going to love it or you're going to learn from it, and it's going to redirect you.
Absolutely. Yep. And I heard a saying a long time ago, and I say this a lot: life begins when you step outside your comfort zone. And you're proof of that. I mean, okay, one of the things I want to hear, what is your coolest story from Bali?
Oh, wow. There were so many. First of all, the trip was much more physical than I had anticipated in
Oh.
terms of, so I was there for 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and I did research and kind of knew the areas I wanted and the things I wanted to do. And then I got a driver guide and 3 friends. I was going to go by myself, but 3
Mhm.
friends wanted to go with me, and I said, fine.
Nice. Yeah.
So, but there was the first day we were there, there is a water purification ceremony that all the tourists do. You go
Oh,
into
wow.
this huge, like, natural pool, and there's statues with fountains, and you bless yourself with water. And there's a line of tourists dressed in sarongs to get in the water. I thought that's what we were doing when it
Mhm.
said water purification ceremony, because that's all the pictures you see. Well, that's not what we did. Our guide drove us a ways out of Ubud. We were going to where the locals go for their water purification ceremony, and it's considered a hidden gem.
Hmm.
And you have to actually walk through a river and
Wow.
then walk up waterfalls. And at every turn, and now the river is anywhere from ankle deep to knee deep. But
Okay.
then when you walk up the waterfalls, you're holding on to rocks. And I'm not a mountain climber, but I do
Yeah.
love the water.
How
And
high was the waterfall?
I don't even know. It wasn't one of those gushing 100-foot.
Yeah.
But so at every turn, we would be surprised with a ceremony, a statue or a fountain, and we would have the ceremony probably 10 times on this walk, and there would be locals there showing us what to do. And I felt so peaceful, and the people of Bali are so kind and
Mm.
generous and helpful, and they are constantly giving offerings to, they believe in a lot of different gods, but it's all one God, and there's incense and flowers. And so I guess the part that was the most unexpected was just the loving energy, the
Mhm.
continuous ceremony. They believe strongly in karma.
Mhm.
And I saw some of the most amazing views from walking up and down waterfalls
Sure.
that I had not expected. And there were a lot of climbs in cliffs
Mhm.
where you had to rappel.
Oh, wow.
There were no handrails, but then it opened up and it was this magnificent view. And they love swings. They love to create swings. And I did it twice, where you swing out over an open area. And it's all about freedom. It's all about freedom. There's two, I guess there's 2 priorities, if you will, in people's motivation. One is freedom and one is growth.
Wow.
So those are
Nice.
the 2 things that you're experiencing it, whether you know it or not.
That's
Either
awesome.
you're
Yeah.
either a sense of freedom or a sense of growth.
Is this for everyone who goes to Bali? They all have to go through this, or it was just the
No,
experience that you chose?
it's the experience that I chose. There's
Awesome.
many different types of experiences in Bali, but I wanted the one that emphasized nature, culture, and spirituality.
Oh, how awesome. Wow.
I'll tell you one more thing.
Yeah.
Another surprise was I shimmied down a small hole to a cave, and inside of it was bigger than a football field and 50 foot high was a temple.
No.
And it was, I think I felt the strongest energy of peace in that cave.
Did you know what was down there? When you shimmied down, did you know what was down there?
I knew they said it was a temple in a cave.
Okay. A temple in a cave.
I had no idea because you had to crawl. Once you shimmied down the rock, you had to crawl on your hands. And then it opened up into like a dome that was bigger than a football field. And they were having prayers in there with incense and offerings.
Wow. What an amazing experience. And again, you were not expecting that when you said, oh, I'm going to go to Bali.
Right.
But all these things were happening. And that's the synchronicity you were talking about before.
Right. And I think one part of the trip that it was the experiencing of Bali, but it was personally, I didn't let fear stop me from going.
Awesome. Wow. So cool. Nancy, see everybody, I told you she was going to be awesome. Didn't I tell you that? And I just looked at the time and we're like running low on our time for this week, but we are going to continue this conversation. We're not going anywhere. So you're going to have to tune in again next week for the rest of this, because one of the things I want to do with this podcast is keep it between 25 to 30 minutes per episode. I don't like it to go over that. So this is part one of our conversation with Nancy Rosenfeld. So we're going to do part two. And next, I want to continue and talk about your books and how you got to Maui and everything going on there. I really want you to talk about, I'm looking forward to reading your books now. So I definitely want to talk about those and hear about your speaking and how people can get in touch with you. Actually, right now, if people are just listening to this one episode, how are people going to find you? What is your website?
So my website name is long. I'll just tell you that. It's I Am Doing This, Nancy Rosenfeld. That's all one word. I Am Doing This, Nancy Rosenfeld .weebly, weebly.com.
You know what? I'm going to have my editing guy put that right down underneath you at the end of this. So as people are watching this right now, hey, Marcus, put her website under her right now, okay? So that people can find her. Okay, so Nancy, thank you. And we're going to take a short break and then come right back with part two. And it's going to air the following week. Thank you so much. And God, maybe we'll even turn into a third. Who knows? I just really enjoyed talking to you. So we're going to do this again. And have a great week, everybody. And we'll see you next week and more with Nancy.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Becoming Your Own BFF with your host, Randy Haveson. Tune in every Friday at 1:30 Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com for more tools to stop being your own worst bully and start becoming your own best friend. Learn essential skills to boost self-esteem and overcome the devastating effects of ego. By focusing on physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, you can start listening to your best friend voice rather than your inner bully voice. For more information, visit randyhaveson.com.